Alexander the Great is often viewed through the lens of ancient myth, but his record is better understood by comparing him to a modern undefeated champion. He is effectively the Khabib Nurmagomedov of conquerors. At 20 years old, Alexander inherited a kingdom and an army of hardened veterans. These were men who had fought for his father for decades and had no natural reason to grant their absolute loyalty to a young, unproven king. Over the next 10 years, he led this army on an undefeated campaign that stretched from the borders of Greece all the way to India. Aside from a few minor skirmishes, he remained practically undefeated across the known world. This decade of success was the result of a 9-part leadership framework divided into 3 escalating pillars. These principles show a clear progression in how to hold power, moving from commanding the physical body to directing the mind and eventually capturing the soul. Pillar 1 is the physical standard. Alexander operated on the principle that a leader cannot direct an organization from the rear. To maintain authority, the commander must share the physical risks of the rank and file. He made a habit of fighting on the front lines, often engaging in hand-to-hand combat. When his army stalled at the walls of a citadel, Alexander personally climbed the ladder and breached the defenses alone. He took an arrow through his armor and into his lung. Yet as soon as he regained consciousness, he insisted on being seen by his troops to prove he was still leading the charge. He balanced this aggression with extreme self-discipline. While his army was dying of thirst in the desert, a group of soldiers found a small amount of water and offered it to him in a helmet. Alexander poured the water into the sand in full view of his men, refusing to drink while his soldiers suffered. He maintained this hardened culture by actively destroying the luxuries his men captured in cities like Babylon. He viewed inactivity and comfort as the primary threats to discipline, and he kept his army active with constant training and competition, even during breaks in the campaign. By proving he was willing to suffer more and risk more than any individual soldier, Alexander neutralized the resentment his troops might have felt toward his royal status. While physical bravery establishes respect, long-term loyalty requires the strategic edge. A leader must demonstrate they can maneuver both the enemy's movements and their own people's emotions. Alexander began building this reputation as a child by taming the horse Bucephalus. While older veterans failed to control the animal, Alexander noticed it was reacting to its own shadow. By simply turning the horse toward the sun, he solved a problem through observation that others tried to solve through force. He applied the same rule-breaking logic to his battles. He was the first commander to deploy heavy siege catapults as field artillery against mobile cavalry, a tactic that saved his men during a desperate river crossing and reinforced his image as a tactical innovator. To prevent mutiny among his exhausted troops, he used a specific rhetorical structure. He would first ground the men in their own pride as elite veterans, then make a direct request for one more step, and finally conclude by highlighting the riches and glory waiting just beyond the next horizon. These creative, unconventional tactics made him appear unbeatable to his enemies, while his structured communication kept a homesick army marching deeper into Asia long after they wanted to return home. The final layer of leadership is the mythical aura. At this level, success is no longer viewed as a result of effort, but as an inevitable outcome of destiny. Alexander cultivated this perception by aligning himself with the mystical. He utilized family legends, tracing his ancestry to Hercules and Achilles, projecting an image of a man who was operating on a superhuman plane. This belief in his own destiny was most apparent before the Battle of Gaugamela. While his generals were paralyzed by the size of the Persian army, Alexander was found sleeping soundly. When asked how he could be so calm, he simply told his officers that the victory was already won. This manufactured aura of destiny is a trait shared by many historical giants. Winston Churchill spoke of being protected by Providence on the battlefield, while Napoleon frequently referred to his fortune, a psychological tool used to make his followers feel they were part of an unstoppable force. When a leader makes continuous success look effortless, it transforms the army's loyalty. Every victory reinforces the idea that the commander is destined to win, making their authority feel like an objective fact of nature. Every organization or army is an extension of its leader. The culture of the group is determined by the specific standards the person at the top is willing to embody. After Alexander was criticized for risking his life at the Citadel, an old soldier approached him and provided the ultimate validation. He told the king that doing the painfully hard thing is simply what true men do. We see this principle in modern visionaries who sleep on factory floors or stay in the office until midnight during a crisis. By sharing the burden, they demonstrate that they believe in the mission as much as the employees they are asking to sacrifice. Hesitant leadership creates an aura of uncertainty that eventually leads to disaster. True followers respond to bold actions and unshakable conviction. To lead at a world-conquering level requires mastering the physical standard, engineering the strategic edge, and projecting a relentless belief that failure is not an option.